Use your powers for evil.
Your evil is mine.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast. Did you miss us? I missed us. I'm sure Jess missed us.
I missed us too. I missed the listeners. And
I'm Charles Skaggs, and of course, with me is my partner in time, everybody's favorite partner in time, Jesse Jackson.
Yes, it is good to be back. Though Charles and I continue to talk via online and back and forth, so I don't miss. I don't miss Charles as much because, believe it or not,
I don't miss Charles.
well,
I'm used to it.
Because I'm always talking to Charles, and believe it or not, we actually spend a little time planning this.
Right.
I don't know if it shows up sometimes in the finished progress, but we try.
Well, we want to give that to seat of our pants, flying by the seat of our pants type of
Absolutely.
Production, because hey, but no, we actually do talk about this stuff. Believe it or not, it may not come across that way, but we try. So welcome everybody back, episode 116. I know it's been a few weeks, so let's try and get back on track here. We're going to talk the twin dilemma, and this is a very controversial episode for Doctor Who, namely because it's for the most part pretty horrible. And I'm looking forward to getting your take on this rather dubious episode, Jesse.
Yeah. For once, I am not alone.
Right. You are not alone.
Yeah. I read
as the Facebook
online
might say
that people thought that there was not a lot of story for 2 episodes,
right.
much less 4.
Right.
And that's often one of my complaints about the Classic Who. I do not, and I know we'll get into this a little bit more, but I do not think the story choices did Colin Baker a lot of good.
No.
I think there's a lot of things that the producers made a decision and did not serve his Doctor very well.
No, this episode is pretty much the epitome of bad decision making.
Yes.
And a horrible way to launch a new Doctor, for one thing, especially coming off a pretty popular Dr. Peter Davison.
Yeah.
So, just a quick overview. This is written by Anthony Stephen, his only script for Doctor Who, probably, thank goodness. Directed by Peter Moffat, and this is the 7th serial, the last serial from season 21 in 1984, starring Colin Baker, of course, and Nicola Bryant as Peri. And what happened here was that they took the final serial from Peter Davis's run and decided, okay, we'll give Colin Baker the last episode so we can get everybody used to the new Doctor so they don't have to wait to see the new Doctor. But it comes off as like really rushed and poorly planned out as a result, I think.
And that makes no sense to me, Charles. I realize you were not in the room making that decision. But,
I wish I was.
Yeah.
I wish I had the TARDIS to go back and yell at some people. But.
And not just because the 5th Doctor is your Doctor. I just don't think this serves Colin Baker, the 6th Doctor's well at all. I mean, you've got this one episode, and if you're going to do this, like right now, they've teased us Jodie Whittaker. They
Right.
teased us Matt Smith. When they did that, they do just a
Right.
few minutes of
It's like
screen time.
They didn't just shave off the last of say Peter Capaldi's episode to give us a Jodie Whittaker story.
Right. And it just I don't think it was a very smart move at all.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, I mean, obviously Colin Baker would be obviously like to go back and change some things if he had the ability, but yeah, just you've got to you make the Doctor unlikable,
Yes.
and you give him this horrible costume, a clown's costume essentially, and you're coming right off of one of the best stories that Doctor Who has ever done, The Caves of Androzani. And you follow it up with arguably the worst. I mean, if it's not the worst, personally, my worst Doctor Who episode is Love and Monsters from the modern era.
Right.
But until that point, pretty much everybody was decided it was the Twin Dilemma, I think, for the most part. I mean, there were some exceptions. Some people actually like the Twin Dilemma, so I don't want to discount everybody. But by and large, the general reaction to this was that it was one of the worst. And it actually, in a Doctor Who magazine poll here about maybe 10, 15 years ago, they ran Twin Dilemma was the worst selected in the poll of all the Doctor Who stories to that date. So yeah, it has this dubious distinction, and we're gonna dive into this. So don't feel bad if you didn't like this story, because again, I'm not a fan of it, and Jesse's probably not a fan of it.
Right.
So we'll dive a little deeper into this, but it is important because obviously it's Colin Baker's first story, and this is why I wanted to talk about it. Even though it is such a horrible episode, it's an important one because it's Colin Baker's debut, for good or for bad, and whether you like it or not, as the Sixth Doctor is fond of saying. So we'll dive into this. So Jesse, do you have any general overview thoughts before I break down some notable cast members?
It's just not very good, and we'll go from there. Yes.
Okay, that's it.
Yeah.
That's your general overview. That's not very good. All right, that's fair. So notable cast members. Kevin McNally, who plays the sort of space cop Hugo Lang in the story. You might know him if you're a fan of the Pirates of the Caribbean films, because he plays Mr. Gibbs, Josamee Gibbs, the kind of first mate for Barbossa and then later Captain Jack Sparrow in those movies. And so he obviously went on to a more notable career. He's also in the Bond movie, The Spy Who Loved Me, and he was also in the Tom Cruise movie Valkyrie, if you ever saw that. That's actually a pretty good movie.
That is a very good movie, and they continue not just because of the British connection, but there is a lot. If someone who was more ambitious than we could do a Venn diagram of Doctor Who and James Bond, and there would be a huge,
You'd have that one of kind of like you'd have a room filled with like string tied from one end of the room to the other, like a big spider web, because like a conspiracy nut and theorist, and because it's so intertwined with the Bond films. Obviously, and this is just one of numerous examples we've talked about. Mm-hmm. We had Dennis Chinnery as Sylvester. He actually appeared in a couple of previous episodes. He played a character named Albert C. Richardson in the William Hartnell story The Chase, which was also the last episode with Ian and Barbara. And he also played a character named Garman in the Tom Baker classic Genesis of the Daleks. So
Okay,
he
good.
appeared there. Edwin Richfield, who played Mestor, the slug villain in this one, he played Captain Hart in John Pertwee's story called The Sea Devils. And Seymour Green, who played the Chamberlain, he played a character named Hargreaves in the Tom Baker story, The Seeds of Doom.
Mm-hmm.
So we had that. And Helen Blatch, who played Fabian in the story, she was a voice artist in the Tom Baker classic, The Deadly Assassin. So we've, again, this is another great example of Doctor Who using previous actors in different roles. So just something that if you're a trivia buff, you've got that connection. So let's just dive right into our main discussion.
Mm-hmm.
As we hold our nose and just dive right in on this one. Theme may not be this obvious this time.
Okay.
But if you're a fan of a certain television show, you might pick it up. I'll just tease that.
Okay.
So first topic I want to talk about, the Time Travelers.
Okay.
I'll just throw it out there. And this is, of course, the Sixth Doctor and Peri. We need to talk about them right off the bat because obviously this is Colin Baker's first story, and we have Peri, one of the few companions who has actually seen a regeneration happen before her, or him or her, and her reaction to the Doctor, who has this rather severe post-regenerative trauma that's left him prone to fits of mania, paranoia, and cowardice, and also the penchant for strangling people. And so we need to talk about this, I think.
I think I'm going to put this on a loop and
Yeah.
just so I can hit the report. What were they thinking?
Right.
We certainly have seen that regeneration takes a toll out of the Doctor.
Right.
And we've established that both in the classic era and the modern era. But we have never seen it this violent.
Yes.
And I just picture the writer's room, and I realize the BBC doesn't always do writer's room. Let's just pretend for a moment.
Yes.
And let's pretend we're, on the time tunnel. We've gone floating through,
All right.
or the TARDIS.
Yes.
And we're like, okay, you know what would be really good? We should, how everyone's kind of weird after regeneration? Yeah, let's have them attack the companion. Oh, yeah, that'll make them love a new Doctor.
Right.
Right?
It makes no sense, does it?
No, it doesn't. Now
I did some reading that apparently the plan was to have him start off as they thought that might be a good idea to make the Doctor initially unlikable, and then you would come to they would tweak his character along the way to make him likable later on.
Right.
But if you're trying to keep viewers from a likable Doctor,
mm-hmm.
that makes absolutely no sense whatsoever.
And I think another thing hurting this is the era.
Right.
For example,
because this is 1984. We have to
right.
keep in mind.
There is not an internet. There is not social media.
Right.
There is not the type of entertainment news gathering that there is now.
Right. There was fandom, but it was like, you'd have like the occasional gathering of fans, and I'm sure they had like little fanzines that they would write into, like we did for our Teen Titans days back in Titan Talk.
Yeah. So
back in the 90s.
And I guess the showrunner at the time loved Hawaiian print shirts, and that's what someone had said that may be one of the reasons why he wanted this.
Yeah, producer John Nathan Turner.
Yeah.
Who was occasionally very a bit flamboyant at times and loved to get press attention. His whole thing was wanting people to talk about the show, no matter what. And this is obviously a way to get people to talk about it by giving the doctor what they, this horrible costume, tasteless, intentionally so.
Yeah, and I could see this if we were in a modern era.
Right.
And showrunner X, says, all right, here's what I have a vision that I think Doctor Who fandom will enjoy, but I'm going to tell you from the start, this is going to be a different kind of Doctor. What I ask you to do is trust us.
Right.
Hang in there and let us see where we're going to go. And this showrunner would have hit certain fandoms. He would have done this, and there would have been a ground kind of support of, okay, they're trying something different. Let's wait and see with the ride.
So like do a PR tour.
Yes.
Or, or just to try to calm everybody down.
Yeah, and to reset the expectation.
Right. Lower the bar a little.
And then I also think that Colin Baker could have done PR and said, in a modern era, we have an interesting journey ahead for the Doctor. Understand that ultimately I am the Doctor, and the Doctor is always the same person, just with a little different quirks. So hang with us. We're going to be okay. Instead, and I'll jump ahead to one of the quotes, right?
Go ahead.
I would suggest, Peri, that you wait a little before criticizing my new persona. You may find it isn't quite as disagreeable as you think. And Peri says, well, I hope so. And then the Doctor says, whatever else happens, I am the Doctor, whether you like it or not.
Right.
All right. We are a family-rated podcast.
Yes.
But
I'm eating my popcorn here, waiting to see where this is going to go.
That, to me,
is
a F you to the audience. You've just had arguably one of the worst episodes of the Doctor Who era at that time. And you've got this guy in a horribly unattractive outfit.
Right.
They have chosen to play him arrogant and not charming at all.
Right.
Now, in real life, incredibly charming.
Yes.
And later, as he's done Big Finish audio, a wonderful Doctor.
Thank God for Big Finish. I'm sure Colin Baker is just thank you for helping salvage some of my legacy.
Yeah, and
with Big Finish.
And later, after the anger passed, has been a wonderful ex-Doctor. I mean, he goes to conventions. He's absolutely charming. I sent a link that a few years ago I was.
Yeah, you had the pleasure of meeting him.
Yes.
And I'm very jealous of that because I would love to meet Colin Baker at some point.
Yeah, and he was just absolutely lovely interviewing and talking about and.
It just shows you how poorly he was served by the scripts of this era.
And then to end the show with, well, maybe you shouldn't judge me so quick. Well, you know what? You've only given me this to judge.
Right. Yeah. Where's the good stuff for me to focus on, right? Yeah.
So that's what I thought. Now, Peri, absolutely lovely.
Right.
An interesting companion.
Nicola Bryant. Yeah.
It does not hurt that she is very attractive. Right. And but she's also, it appears they had a potential of some interesting chemistry.
Right.
But I don't know if it ever fell through.
Well, I think it did with Colin Baker and Nicola Bryant's last season, season 23, which was the Trial of the Time Lord season.
Yes.
Because if you watch them in the Mysterious Planet, the first story of that, the first arc of that Trial of the Time Lord saga, they have great chemistry.
Yeah.
They're not bickering. They're just kind of like friends hanging out, and it's much more pleasant to watch them. But here in this story, and for a good chunk of season 22, They're not. They're written to just have this antagonistic relationship with only glimmers of actual friendship behind that.
And when I was going to interview Colin,
Right.
a friend of the podcast, Take a Drink, Ken Schaefer,
Right.
suggested,
I can.
he said, order Trial of the Time Lord,
Right.
because by far that's the best that Colin did.
Yes.
And so I did buy that box set on DVD and watched all of them. And I remember, now that was 3 or 4 years ago, but I remember enjoying them.
Yeah.
And liking the Doctor, and then got confused about this possibly was the future Doctor and all this other stuff that I probably need to rewatch it. But I guess my bottom line is that if there was ever someone who was kind of given a bad hand,
Right.
is Colin Baker.
Yeah, I mean, he's talked about that. He wanted like just kind of an all-black costume like Christopher Eccleston had for the most part. And he thought that would have suited his Doctor much better, and I agree, because you wouldn't spend your time just like, I can't believe I'm watching what this guy is wearing. And and the Doctor's obviously had some eccentric costumes.
Right.
But this just goes too far.
Yeah.
Way too far. And to the point, I think they wanted the approach that this Doctor was to try to emphasize his alienness. And he talks about this in the story where the Sixth Doctor is just like, well, Peri, you're applying your Earth standards to me, but remember, I'm an alien.
Yeah.
And, that I have a different outlook than you.
Mm-hmm.
But there wasn't the balance against that to kind of like, okay, on the surface he's this, but with a kind of like a sly wink and a nod to the audience, he's this. This more relatable character. And we never really get this at all in this story.
No, we don't. And Capaldi's Doctor is at time a grumpy old man.
Right. Just kind of like William Hartnell's Doctor.
Yeah, but it is...
but it was balanced.
Yes, it was balanced. It was balanced,
especially
very
when
well.
he started. Capaldi also, like you mentioned, he had a rough first season, but then like in series 9 and 10, they gave him a more of a sense of humor. They gave him the guitar and the shades, and made him a little more cooler and relatable, like an aging rock star, as we've talked about. So that ultimately became his persona.
Yeah.
And as a result, it made him more relatable. And Colin's Doctor, sadly, didn't get much of that.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting watching Jodie's costume, because it has some weird colors, but it looks more like you're in a T-shirt with, versus Colin's this coat of many colors.
Right.
Shout out to
Dolly Parton.
Yes.
Yes.
And it just it looked horrible.
Yeah.
And versus the Fifth Doctor, he was pretty consistent in his kind of cricket outfit, and
right.
So it just there's just so many mistakes.
And that's you just brought up another point that I have, another issue that I have, is that they spend a good chunk. The Sixth Doctor spends a good chunk of the time dismissing his previous persona.
Right.
Like Peri's like going on like, well, you were sweet. And the Sixth Doctor just is just completely offended by that. He's like, sweet, effete, sweet.
Yeah.
And just that he talks about how the Fifth Doctor was on the verge of being neurotic because of his keeping his emotions in check. And then this line that you brought up, where he says, I'm the Doctor whether you like it or not, is more of a it's almost a dig at the fans.
Yes.
Like it's basically like saying, well, I don't care if you like this or not. This is the way it's going to be, so just deal with it.
Hmm.
So there's no outreach with this doctor to the fans. It's more of like, well, hey, you don't like it, too bad.
Yeah.
And apparently enough people, I checked the ratings on this episode, and between episodes 1 and 4, they lost 1 million viewers from episodes
Yes.
1. So apparently enough viewers were turned off by what they saw in the first couple episodes, but they didn't even care to finish the end of the story.
Yeah, and I think um
Which again is a dumb, dumb decision.
yes it is. And the actual okay, we haven't even got there yet, and I'm sure
Yeah,
we
we'll
will.
we'll get
Okay,
there.
okay, good deal. All
I
right.
know, yeah,
So,
we should.
um
So yeah, I know we spent a lot of time ranting about this,
yeah, and
but
I really do um I
no, were you
blame
let's get
yeah,
to focus on the story.
yes.
No, were you shocked? How shocked were you when you saw the doctor trying to choke Perry?
I was really shocked, and um I and I'm second guessing, but
Yes,
the idea you have is you're confused after you regenerate. You call your companions by the wrong name.
right,
You're trying to sort through these memories
right.
that
Like example when he says Braveheart Tegan,
yes.
which was obviously he's a reference to Peter Davison's companion Tegan Jovanka,
Yeah.
and that was his little catchphrase with her.
Hmm.
With that, he would tell her Braveheart when he's trying to reassure her of something.
Yeah, and it just um as we talked about, why would you make that decision to make him hurt someone?
Right,
Um and yes, I was very shocked.
right.
I didn't understand what they were trying to accomplish. Um,
Well, they try to flip it around
yeah,
so that, like, the doctor, once Perry points it out to him, like, hey, idiot, you just tried to strangle me. And the doctor, like, sees how scared Perry is of him. Hey, yeah, let's make the companion scared of the doctor. Great, great idea. So, the doctor realizes he needs to repent for this. He feels that like he acknowledges that what he did, and so now he just suddenly in this again, it's another like post-regenerative kind of issue where he just over takes that and just completely exaggerates it to the point where like, well, I need to go off and become a hermit to repent for my horrible sin of attacking you.
and
This complete overreaction.
yes, it truly doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of wondering, and
I mean,
once
I
again,
get. I think they wanted to, obviously they wanted to emphasize just how troubled this regeneration was. That he's just all over the place emotionally. But again, there was no balance
no,
because just like it would be one thing if like every so often he has a fit and just like has to like kind of rein himself in before he does something stupid or unlikable.
yeah,
And that doesn't happen because he's constantly doing something stupid and unlikable. He like at one point he's like holding Perry in front of him when and he's like clutching down, like slinks down all cowardly, like hey, it wasn't me, it was her, just don't shoot me.
yeah,
And it's just
because
like, I'm supposed to like this,
yeah, why would we want to see that?
right?
Um,
Why does any viewer want to see their hero turn into this cravenly, cowardly person that on a dime can flip and try to strangle people? Because he
yeah,
also tries to strangle Asmael at one point.
yes, it
You know,
is. Yeah,
and it's just like, okay,
yeah,
enough.
exactly. Totally
So
dumb.
yeah, all right. So now that we've kind of just dredged that to death,
Yes.
Let's move on to a second topic, unless you had something else you want to rant
Nope,
about.
I'm good.
Okay, I want to give you your fair shot here. So this is topic number 2, the slime people. So we have the time travelers and the slime people.
Okay.
So keep that in mind.
Okay.
And this is obviously going to talk about Mestor, the slug-like villain with a severe case of cross eyes. So let's talk about Mestor and his plan to scatter slug eggs across the universe to as an invasion type plan.
I don't. First off,
Yeah.
horrible
Right.
makeup and special effects.
Yeah.
I mean, horrible.
This ridiculously silly costume.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
The only thing they could have made this worse is if instead of having the villain look all cross-eyed, is to give him like googly eyes that kind of spin around.
Yes.
That's the only thing that could have made that even worse, in my opinion.
I agree. It was horrible, and a lot of moving pieces that
Right.
don't really make sense together.
Yes. Yeah.
I actually liked the twins and the whole.
Yeah. We'll talk
thing.
about the twins here in our third segment, so we'll talk about that here.
Okay.
But yeah, I want to focus more on Mestor's plan.
Yeah.
And you know, just in this idea that okay, apparently these gastropods, as we find out, who are just giant slugs, essentially slug-like creatures, somehow they just destroyed Gioconda, laid waste to it. Not quite sure how, considering all they do is just kind of like move around and leave slime trails that you could get stuck in if you step into them.
Yeah.
But you know, like they talk about they land on Gioconda and it's the doctor steps out all like expecting this big paradise, going he's got outstretched arms and like wanting to bask in the tranquility, and it's this kind of like dust-ridden wasteland.
Yeah.
But I'm not quite sure how they got there.
I don't understand it at all.
Yeah.
Seems like a really dumb plan.
Right.
Maybe I'm misunderstanding.
You mean to scatter eggs throughout the universe?
Yeah.
And yeah.
It just doesn't seem to make
Yeah.
a lot of sense to me.
Right.
I
I think what it was is like, okay, we don't really. You think he'd be better off just like building a bunch of rockets and just targeting areas that he wanted to invade.
Yes.
With his progeny.
Mm-hmm.
But instead, he comes up with this really complicated plan of, you know, like moving planets and, you know, like that exploding a sun that will somehow launch these things across, scatter them throughout the universe.
Yeah. And I guess just as I look at this really, really bad makeup, I just can't take him serious.
Right. Yes.
I don't know about you,
but
I have that problem.
These obviously fake little antenna at the top that look all paper mache.
Yes.
And again, he's got these eyes that are just driving me nuts that they're cross-eyed, which is like, if you want to make him look threatening, like he has this cool voice. It's like, you know, doctor, you will do this, blah, blah, blah. But he has these eyes that just distract from that threatening tone.
And they have like kind of the mask around so he can still move his actual mouth.
Yeah, it's like a half mask almost. Yeah.
And it just
it comes off as just ridiculous.
Yes, it does. I agree.
Yeah. All right. I know there's obviously not going to be that much to talk about with this villain because he's very forgettable.
Yes.
And he was very powerful because he has these mental abilities that were pretty formidable. But again, it's hard to take him seriously when he looks like that.
Yes.
So a complete waste of execution all around.
I agree.
All right. Topic number 3. Teenagers from outer space. So we have the time travelers, the slime people, and teenagers from outer space.
I feel like I should know what you're talking about, but I don't right now.
Okay,
Okay.
so if you want me to go ahead and explain, since that is our third topic.
Yes, please.
These are all titles of episodes from a favorite show of mine, Mystery Science Theater 3000.
Ah, very nice. Okay, very good.
So these are actually like really bad, cheesy movies, which I thought would be perfect for the twin dilemma, which is really bad and cheesy.
Yes.
So yeah, just they were like really bad, like C-list movies back in the day that, of course, Mystery Science Theater famous for making fun of.
Yeah, well done. Well done. I should have caught that, but yes. Nice theme.
So yeah, it's one of my favorite shows, including the modern era. So yeah, that's it. That's where we got those.
Good.
So if you figured that out, points to you.
Very nice.
All right. So this I want to talk about. Romulus and Remus are twins who get in sort of a dilemma, and hence the title. And Asmael / Edgeworth, where I want to talk about him as well, because Asmael is the one who kidnaps these twins and brings them to Mestor to figure out how to execute his overly complicated plan.
Yeah, I don't know, and maybe you can explain.
I'll try.
Did they control the Time Lord? I mean, why was he being involved? It just seems to be a little bit of confusion.
I think it was that he felt that the slugs, the gastropods, had taken over Gioconda.
Okay.
And so he kind of felt like maybe he was powerless to stop because of Mestor's mental abilities. That he wasn't able to overcome Mestor. So he just felt like pressured to do what Mestor wanted. That's the way I took it.
Okay, fair enough.
I mean, if you took it a different way, that's cool. I get that, but that's the way I perceived it, was that he felt powerless to prevent Mestor from doing what he wanted. So he just okay, just to keep the other Gicondans safe, I'll do what you want.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
that's the way I took it.
Very good.
So he's kind of like a reluctant collaborator.
Okay, and I always like when the Doctor runs into another Time Lord, because that isn't something we currently run into because he's the last of the Time Lords. But I always like that.
And I thought that was a rather, like one of the few things you could like about this story is that they actually gave Asmael a bit of a backstory, a little bit, where he had met the Doctor at some point during his fourth incarnation. Because the Doctor says, well, I've regenerated twice since you've seen me.
Yes.
So I have to, logically guess that it was the fourth Doctor he met. And apparently they went out drinking at some point, or at least the Doctor was hanging out while Asmael was getting hammered.
Right.
And apparently they were hanging out by a fountain at some point.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently that was a really fond memory that the Doctor latched onto.
Yeah.
Even in this troubled state. Somehow it pierced its way through the void, and the sixth Doctor, is actually has a genuine moment of friendship toward Asmael.
It is,
and it showed you what the Doctor could have been. His Doctor could have been for that brief moment.
Yeah, and I love when they, he says, "Oh, I guess you are the Doctor," with
right.
as much notice.
Right.
And you would think...
You think Time Lords are, they've talked about how Time Lords can recognize other Time Lords, but for some reason, Asmael cannot recognize the Doctor.
I was going to bring that up, that it seems like we have set that up where you can, you recognize.
Right.
But, hand wave as
hand wave
friends.
On that
yes,
one, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Shout out to Karen on that one.
Exactly.
Yep. the twins. Now, obviously, they got a couple of twin actors, but I thought it was interesting that apparently both twins have lisps as they try to talk
Mm-hmm.
a bit, and they have. I mean, they're essentially their job is to calculate everything for Mestor's plan using I forget the term that they used, but just this kind of advanced mathematics using symbols that they use,
Yeah.
and they've got little like Sharpie markers or whatever to kind of like draw in their little squares and whatnot to calculate this stuff. So, any thoughts about the twins?
My first thought was,
Yeah.
that's a very interesting game they're playing, and the
Right.
game pieces are way too tall.
Right.
It looks like a backgammon board.
Yes.
With really, and
Is
it was like, wait, those are way too big.
Yeah. It's almost like okay, we need to look like a really advanced game. So yeah, get that backgammon board, and like I'll get some vases or like little trophy things, and I'll set them on top, and they'll just move those around, and somehow that's a game.
Yeah. But I liked the twins.
Yeah.
I thought they didn't give us a lot of personality.
No.
But I think that's another missed opportunity, because if you could have had an arrogant twin and a not so arrogant twin, had a little different personality, build some conflicts, what they were trying to do, that could have been a lot better story.
Yeah, but for this story, they're the way they're depicted is that, well, they say things a lot in synchronization. They just they both say things in unison, and apparently that's it. Like they're just like this collective mind between the two.
Yeah.
And but yeah, as a result, they didn't have much personality.
Not at all.
But it would have been nice to actually maybe one twin wants to do something one way, and then another twin wants to do it another way. Yeah. And then kind of butting heads, I think, would at least made them a little more interesting.
I agree.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else about the story before we move on?
Nope. Or
are you just ready to chuck it in the trash bin?
We are ready to hit the recycle bin.
Yes. Okay. Yes. Exactly. All right. Now, I know you had a really good quote that you said during our discussion. Do you have any other quotes you'd like to talk about? Favorite lines of the episode?
No, there were a couple, but nothing that stood out. I don't know if I'm hoping you have a couple, but it did not feel as a well-written episode as often we get. Yeah,
and again, it's just poor writing all around, and we can just be thankful that Anthony Stephen didn't write any other episodes of Doctor Who.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of lines that I did sort of like, though, to try to be a little more positive, was this exchange between the Doctor and Peri, where the Doctor says, "My perception's sharpening. I can sense some massive danger to the universe." And Peri kind of chides him a little, and she says, "I thought you were the danger to the universe."
Yeah, very nice.
And then there's another exchange between the Sixth Doctor and Hugo Lang, where the Doctor is like comparing himself to Lang, going, "Oh, it's all right for you. You're young, strong, fit of limb. You're confident in your mission. Your energy's boundless. You're highly motivated to success. You even have a gun to enforce your will upon others. But look at me. I'm old, lacking in vigor. My mind's in a turmoil. I no longer know if I'm coming, have gone, or have even been. I'm falling to pieces. I no longer even have any clothes sense."
Yes.
Yeah. So maybe a little bit more of lines like that. Maybe it would have worked a little better, this story.
And
being a little more self-aware.
And what bothers me is they actually try to make the they try to make the Doctor like he's proud
Right.
of this costume versus going, no, there's nothing to be proud about it at all. So yeah.
Well, it was just more of his defiance,
Yes,
of
absolutely.
everybody else around him. Like, I don't care if you like this or not. I like it.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's not the problem isn't me, it's you.
Yes.
Yeah. So, I did have one more quote,
Okay.
exchange between Mestor and the Doctor, where Mestor says, "He has tried to kill me. He must therefore forfeit his own existence." And the Doctor replies, "Oh, thought we'd come to that. Embolism time, is it? Oh, don't tell me. My blood will bubble like a raging stream. I will beg to die, and in so doing I will crave your indulgence and forgiveness? Not quite, Time Lord. Good, because in my time I've been threatened by experts. I don't rate you very highly at all."
Yeah. Good stuff, but just horrible.
Yes.
Just horrible episode. So good. Okay.
Yeah. All right. Now this comes the interesting part. What's your rating for this story? As the world waits in anticipation.
Yeah. Because of the significance that we're getting a new Doctor,
Right.
and because I do not want to take out this on the actors, I'm going to give it, 3 new costumes out of 5.
Okay. Out of 5 or out of 10?
Yeah, I guess so. That's true. Yeah.
We normally rate on a 10 scale.
Yes, we do.
Asking.
So, yeah. So I guess I'd give it a 5 then. A 5 out of 10.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. How about
so,
you?
So before you adjusted that, I was a little more generous, but now apparently I'm a little less generous.
Yeah.
I give this one 4 out of 10 cat badges.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, because of Colin Baker's cat badge, which he rubs for good luck. And the eagle-eyed viewer, as you watch each of Colin Baker's stories, he has a different badge in his lapel in each story.
Oh, nice.
So
Okay.
So that's something to spot. But I prefer this first one because I think it's really cool cat badge.
Absolutely.
And my wife Lori actually likes it. So yeah, so that's fair. That's something she actually likes about classic Doctor Who. All right. So do you have any reverse polarity segment this time?
No.
Nothing.
I'm sure you have something.
You got nothing, huh?
I do not.
All right.
I guess we could talk a little bit, and if I'm guess, I would do, Capaldi's first episode. But
okay.
Yeah, but no, that's all I have.
All right. So I had to think long and hard about this, but I think I have something. So we're going to run it past you. All right. So my recommendation for reverse the polarity is The Runaway Bride.
Okay.
This is the 2006 Christmas special written by Russell T Davies, and a much better story than The Twin Dilemma, in my opinion. The 10th Doctor is shocked when Donna Noble, in a wedding dress, suddenly appears within the TARDIS while in flight. She angrily demands to be returned to her wedding on Earth, but the TARDIS materializes far away from the ceremony. Donna, of course, leaves in a huff and takes a cab, but the Doctor observes a robotic Santa Claus is driving the cab. So he realizes that she's being abducted. He uses the TARDIS to rescue Donna from the cab and escorts her to her wedding. The Doctor examines the video footage of the ceremony to see how Donna disappeared and realizes that she absorbed a large amount of Huon particles that drew her to the TARDIS. Upon learning that the Doctor and her would-be groom, Lance, work for the Torchwood Institute, the Doctor finds a long tunnel under the Thames Barrier and a secret lab producing Huon particles, along with a pit that leads to the center of the Earth. Their presence is noticed by the Empress of the Rachnos, a spider-like species wiped out aeons ago. The Empress used the Torchwood Institute to make Huon particles, and Lance, who has been working for her, has been feeding the particles to Donna. Donna and the Doctor escape, so the Empress uses Lance as a substitute, force-feeding him Huon particles and then throwing him into the pit. The Doctor and Donna travel back billions of years and discover that an inner Rachnos ship became the core of the Earth as the planet formed around it. The Doctor, and this is where my connection to the Twin Dilemma is, the Doctor also realizes that the Empress needs Huon particles to awaken her children. And if that happens, the Rachnos will eat everything and everyone on Earth and then likely destroy the planet to free their ship. So essentially her plan is to like release her children out into the universe.
Yes.
Just like the gastropods or Mestor's plan. So returning to 2006, the Doctor and Donna try to stop the Empress, but are too late as other Rachnos start emerging from the pit. The Empress brings her ship into orbit around Earth, firing upon the populace. The Doctor attempts to offer a peaceful solution, but the Empress refuses, and the Doctor is forced to remotely detonate explosive devices used by the Santas at the walls of the base, which floods the tunnel with water from the Thames. And this washes the Rachnos back into the pit. So the Empress teleports to her ship to escape, but the ship is destroyed by human forces acting on behalf of Mr. Saxon. Wonder who that could be.
Ooh, yes.
So, dun, 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 dun. The Doctor returns Donna home and offers her the opportunity to travel with him. She declines for now, but suggests that he needs a companion to keep his temperament in check. And the Doctor leaves alone in his TARDIS. Aww. The end.
Yes.
So, yeah. So basically, it had to stretch a little bit, but essentially, yeah, it's kind of the same premise a little bit as the Twin Dilemma, that the Empress is wanting to release her kids.
Yeah. No, that's
to cause havoc and destruction in the universe.
Yeah, that's a really good connection. Well done, sir.
Thank you. Like I said, I had to struggle for that one, but I finally figured it out.
Good.
All right. Now we do have some Series 11 news I want to talk about very quickly.
Please.
Yeah, we've got some news. Finally getting some news about the upcoming season of Doctor Who. We've got some new writers and directors announced, finally. And all new writers, in addition to Chibnall. Now, Chibnall's obviously written for Doctor Who before, as we've talked about here. But we have new writers, Mallory Blackman, the first black writer on Doctor Who.
Nice.
So well done there. Ed Heim, Vinay Patel, so I'm guessing the first Indian or Pakistani descent writer for Doctor Who.
Mm-hmm.
Pete McTighe, and another female writer, Joy Wilkinson. So definitely going a little bit more diverse, which is good, I think.
It is good,
instead of just a bunch of white guys writing for Doctor Who.
Absolutely.
So that's good. And then directors, on the director front, we have Jamie Childs, who is the guy, the person who directed, Jamie Childs directed Jodie Whittaker's reveal as the 13th Doctor. You know that little teaser that they announced where she had the announcement? She's apparently going to be, Jamie Childs is going to be directing the opening episode this season.
Good.
And we also have Sally Afra. I'm trying to pronounce this, so bear with me. I apologize if I butcher this. Aprahamian. And then Jennifer Perot. So a good number of female directors this time. And Mark Tonderai, who we've talked about on the Fandom Zone podcast, because Mark has directed episodes of Lucifer, Gotham, and Black Lightning, and is going to be directing the upcoming adaptation of George R.R. Martin's Night Flyers.
Nice.
And also directed the Jennifer Lawrence movie, The House at the End of the Street.
Ooh, okay.
So Mark is at least known to me. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, we finally got some new writers and Doctor Who and directors announced. So I thought that was cool.
Yes, very cool.
As we continue to wait for episode titles and a release date that isn't fall 2018. We get it, BBC. Yeah. We know it's fall of 2018. When specifically? We would like to plan this for Doctor Who viewing parties and stuff.
Absolutely. We are ready.
And obviously here on Next Up Everywhere, we'd like to know so that, well, hey, we can tell our upcoming new co-host, Karen Lindsay, when she can start. So, yeah.
Yes.
That would be nice. Okay. That's all I have, unless you have anything else you want to talk about before we give our contact information.
Holly Mack did send us an email.
Yeah, thank you for reminding me. Yeah, we do have a bunch of email, don't we?
All right, so I'll read
so we
Holly.
have have 2 emails from Paul, and then we have also a David K. Proctor email. But do you want to go ahead and read Holly's while you're at it?
I will. Hi,
'Cause she
guys.
Yep.
Holly Mack.
Yep.
Hi, guys. Twin Dilemma. The episode where the Sixth Doctor kind of gets a bad rap halfway in the first episode
Kind
due
of.
to regeneration sickness. He needs a nap and a Snickers bar.
Right.
I love that.
Yep.
No carrot juice whatsoever.
Yep.
The twins in this story talk about creepy, almost along the lines of The Shining. Creepy, but not that bad.
Right.
Most of the blame for how the twins are acting is Mester's doing. Edgeworth is just the pawn in this, trying to do the best to protect the twins. It's going to take some time for Peri and the Doctor to get back on a smooth traveling ground.
Like till season 23.
Yeah. I highly recommend the Big Finish audiobooks featuring the Sixth Doctor. It really adds to his adventures and relationships with his companions. I'll wrap it up here. Holly from Wisconsin.
Yeah, I will second Holly's recommendation because Big Finish has done wonders for Colin Baker's Doctor. Mm-hmm. And if you're not a Colin Baker Sixth Doctor fan, go listen to some of his Big Finish audios. I think you'll change your mind.
I agree.
So,
okay.
There are lots of great, and yeah, it's amazing how good his Doctor can be when written well, and you don't have to stare at his horrible costume.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So we also had some feedback from Paul Beck from Australia, who also wrote in about the twin dilemma. Hi, Charles and Jesse. Well, what an interesting story to review. Didn't like it when it first aired, and still don't like it now. Well, at least you're consistent.
Yes.
But I'm right there with you, Paul. It was such a contrast from Peter's Doctor to Colin's. A little too dramatic for most fans. I know they were going for a different kind of Doctor that you would warm to as the series progressed, but this Doctor is initially not likable, especially when he attempts to throttle Peri. I know he's in a regenerative crisis, but his behavior is too erratic. And don't get me started on the wardrobe choice. I think John Nathan Turner took the character too far away from who we know that it was hard to warm to this new incarnation. You can see.
Agree.
Yeah, I agree too. You can see how to do this idea the correct way in the example of Peter Capaldi's Doctor and how they did his first episode.
Yes.
That's a good point. It's a very good point, Paul. Don't get me wrong. You do later in his run warm to this Doctor, but boy, it took a while. Yes, it did. Again, a whole season before. Yeah. I feel sorry for Colin Baker and some of the decisions that the powers to be made for him. Russell T. Davies is quoted as saying this story was, quote, the beginning of the end for Doctor Who's eventual cancellation. I agree.
Yeah.
Obviously, that 1 million loss in ratings was a good example of that. As for the story, I read someone's review which sums it up perfectly. How could anyone have thought that this story of juvenile space monsters, meaningless plans, and never-ending cop-outs was ever workable? Harsh but true. Even the ending line from the Doctor, I am the Doctor, whether you like it or not, seemed definitely aimed at the viewers. Exactly.
Absolutely. We talked about that.
Right. Anyway, I'll be very curious as to what you both think of these episodes. Kindest regards, always, Paul. P.S. Whose first episode are we watching next? It can only get better from here. Smiley face. Well, Paul, you might have. We'll see. Paul's obviously picked up on our theme here. Now, we did get a quick one from David K. Proctor back on August 6th, who wrote in, have y'all seen the lost episode that just aired on BBC America? He's referring to Shada. And, the animated version that completes the story. Great job. I love Tom Baker. It felt like a new episode. Thanks, David K. Proctor. David, I have watched Shada before because I have it on DVD and previously on VHS, if you can believe it. But I have not yet seen this version with the linking animation because they haven't released it on DVD. But I think it's on demand, so I think I could watch it on our Spectrum cable service, but have not done so yet. So maybe we will do that in the near future.
Yeah,
if we find ourselves a little gap before Jodie Whittaker's stories start. depending on whenever the season is supposed to start.
Yeah, I ended up trying to watch a little bit of it. It was okay. I guess
It's written by Douglas Adams, so
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of it anyway, just for that, because of the
Mhm.
dialogue. But yeah, it's
Okay.
I could get where you might have a problem with it. So, but maybe at some point we'll have to do a more serious attempt at reviewing Shada.
Okay, good.
Whereas Tom Baker likes to say Shada. So, if you remember that from the old linking narration back in the day.
Yes.
And then Paul wrote in again, wanted our thoughts on the leaked image of the new TARDIS interior. Which, have you seen that?
I have not.
Yeah, there's all the buzz on the interwebs. Now, the image that Paul emailed me, or emailed us, I should say, was not the leaked image. So I'm not sure if Paul has seen the leaked image.
Okay.
This is a different TARDIS interior that he sent. So I'm not sure where Paul got this picture that he emailed. So unless he was just trying to send a TARDIS interior without spoiling it for us. But I have seen it. It's very interesting. And as I posted on my Twitter account, it kind of looks like, to me, like Paul McGann's TARDIS interior from 1996 TV movie had a baby with Superman's Fortress of Solitude.
Ah, okay.
So a bit crystalline in design, and kind of curious what everybody thinks of it. I'm not obviously going to post pictures of it because I don't want to spoil it, because I don't want to be that guy. So I don't want to be, spoilers guy.
Spoilers.
I don't want to be spoilers guy, but it's out there if you really want to look for it. So
yeah.
All right. So, yeah, Chibnall is going for really interesting ideas. And I'm not going to pass judgment on it because this was like a studio pick that somebody snapped without the proper lighting and whatnot that we see on television. So let's see how it looks on television before being all dismissive of it. Okay.
Okay. Good.
That's my recommendation anyway.
All right. Good.
But thanks to everybody who wrote in. I know it's been a few weeks, so we had to catch up on a little bit of listener email. But if you'd like to reach us, just like David K. Proctor and of course, Holly and Paul, you can reach us at Next Stop Everywhere SMG. Don't forget the SMG at thegmail.com. Or you can reach us on at Next Stop SMG on the Twitter machine, or on our Facebook account, Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast. And also, if you would, please consider donating to the Southgate Media Group Patreon account, because that helps keep the lights on here at Next Stop Everywhere. And do our Rob Southgate a solid by helping out with that. We definitely appreciate that. And Jesse, where can they find you on the interwebs?
I can be found at Jesse Jackson DFW on Twitter.
Yeah.
You can check me out on Facebook, Jesse Jackson, Louisville, Texas. You can hear me on Set Listing Bruce,
right?
Where I talk music, and also on the Titan Talk, the Teen Titan podcast, that we will be doing some new episodes soon as we get closer to the Teen Titans live action series heading our way.
Yeah, we've got some a lot of casting information from the upcoming Titan spinoff Doom Patrol, including the new TV version of Cyborg. So we've got some stuff to talk about there.
Yes. And Charles, how about yourself?
Yeah. Oh, I should mention that, by the way, that the new Cyborg is played by Joyvan Wade, who played Rigsy on Doctor Who. So there's your Doctor Who connection.
Nice.
So if you remember Rigsy from Face the Raven and Flatline, so thought that was kind of cool that there's a Doctor Who connection on the new Doom Patrol series, and hopefully if Cyborg appears on Titans. That would be awesome too. So as for me, you can reach me at Charles Skaggs on the Twitter machine or at Charles Skaggs on Instagram. Would definitely appreciate that. Google Plus for all you crazy kids in the Google Plus. Facebook, of course, Charles Skaggs in Hilliard, Ohio. And, of course, my blog of geeky things.
Damn good coffee. And hot.
Damn good coffee and hot, where I talk about, of course, Doctor Who, Next Stop Everywhere, all kinds of comic book sci-fi news, and news of my other podcasts. Of course, Titan Talk, the aforementioned Titan Talk, the Titans podcast that I do with you, Jesse. And then,
Yes.
of course, the Phantom Zone podcast that I do with our upcoming additional co-host, Karen Lindsay. And then Ghostwood, the Twin Peaks podcast that I do with Zan Sprouse, wife of comic book artist Chris Sprouse, where we talk about, of course, all things Twin Peaks. And all of those, of course, on the Southgate Media Group. So please check those out. I would definitely appreciate it. And please like us on Twitter and Facebook if you're not already. If you have, awesome. You're one of the cool kids. But, of course, hey, we'd always love more. So please do that. Now, Paul asked, what are we going to watch next, Jesse?
Yes, what are we going to watch next?
So next time here for episode 117, which is kind of appropriate because it's got a 7 in it, and we're going to talk about Time and the Ronnie.
Ooh, nice.
Sylvester McCoy's very first episode of Doctor Who, very first story, and slightly better than the Twin Dilemma, but hey, what isn't? And not the greatest story, but again, not the Twin Dilemma, so it's a little bit of a step up. And Sylvester's always fun to watch. So definitely looking forward to it. We get, of course, Sylvester with his companion Melanie Bush, who we haven't talked about really on here on Next Stop Everywhere. So getting curious about your thoughts about Mel. And the return of the Ronnie, who we last talked about when we talked about the Colin Baker story, The Mark of the Ronnie.
Yes.
Kate O'Mara, the late Kate O'Mara. So, should be fun to talk about, if nothing else. And looking forward to that. So everybody write in with your thoughts about Time and the Ronnie. And, of course, especially you, Holly and Paul, we'd always love to hear from you, but we want to hear from all of you out there. So please write in with your thoughts about Time and the Ronnie.
Absolutely.
Jesse, do we have a quote?
We do.
Being out?
This is a situation that requires tact and finesse. Fortunately, I am blessed with both.
Very nice. All right. So thanks, everybody, for listening. And hopefully we'll see you in just 2 weeks right here on Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast. Bye, everybody.
Bye.